My name is Mark Evans, and what I'm about to tell you is 100% true. It happened 6 years ago. I was 24, living alone for the first time in my life. Small apartment, upstate New York, second floor, nothing special, but it was mine. The place had this huge window facing the street. At first I kinda liked it. Gave me a view, gave me light. But that changed on the third night. It was around 2:30 a.m. I was up late working on my laptop when I heard it. Tap, 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 slow, software from behind me. Now remember, I lived on the second floor, no balcony, no ledge. I turned around, and there he was, a man, just standing outside the window, perfectly still. His face, and pale, his eyes, and wide open, locked onto mine. He was wearing what looked like an old, torn hospital gown. He didn't move, didn't blink, just stared. I sat there, frozen, for maybe 5 seconds. Then my body finally kicked in, and I ran into the hallway. When I got the nerve to look again, he was gone. I didn't sleep that night. I told myself I was just tired, imagining things. But over the next few nights, he kept coming back. Same time, same sound, same stare. I started keeping the blinds shut, moved my bed away from the window. Hell, I even slept in the hallway for a while. And then, just like that, he stopped. A few months later, I was talking to my landlord. I told him, half jokingly, about the guy at my window. He didn't laugh. Instead, he got real quiet. Then he told me, 10 years earlier, a man named Jacob had lived in that same apartment. He was a psychiatric patient, had escaped from a nearby hospital and hid out there for weeks. Every night he stood at that same window, just staring out, silent. Eventually the police caught up to him. He jumped from the second floor. Didn't survive. I moved out 2 weeks later. Now, every night before bed, I check the window, and I never leave the blinds open. My name is Ethan, and I'm a skeptic, or at least I was. Growing up, I scoffed at ghost stories, dismissed bumps in the night as settling pipes, and firmly believed that anything supernatural was merely a trick of the mind. That was until I inherited Blackwood Manor. It belonged to my great-aunt Mildred, a reclusive woman I barely knew. The house itself was a sprawling Gothic structure nestled deep within a thick ancient forest. It was exactly the kind of place where horror movies are set, and I found myself chuckling at the irony as I pulled up the long overgrown driveway. The first few weeks were fine. The silence was profound, almost oppressive, but I attributed it to the isolation. I spent my days exploring the dusty rooms, filled with antiquated furniture and countless forgotten curiosities. But then, the whispers started. At first, I thought I was imagining it. A faint murmur, like distant voices just at the edge of my hearing. I'd pause, strain my ears, and it would vanish. I convinced myself it was the wind, or perhaps the old house creaking, but the whispers grew clearer, more insistent. They weren't words, not exactly, but a low guttural murmur that seemed to emanate from the very walls themselves. One night I was reading in the library, a massive room lined with towering bookshelves. The temperature in the room dropped significantly, and I saw my breath plume in the air. The whispers intensified, surrounding me, pressing in from all sides. It sounded like dozens of voices all speaking at once, yet none of them distinct. It was a cacophony of dread. I slammed my book shut, my heart pounding against my ribs. "Hello?" I called out, my voice wavering despite my attempt at bravado. The whispers died down, replaced by an unnerving silence. I stood up, my eyes darting around the dimly lit room. That's when I saw it, a faint, translucent figure standing at the far end of the library, barely visible against the shadows. It was tall and gaunt, its features indistinct, but I could feel its gaze on me, a chilling, ancient malevolence. My breath hitched in my throat. I wanted to run, to scream, but I was frozen in place, utterly terrified. The figure didn't move, but the whispers started again, this time directly behind me. I spun around, but there was nothing. The whispers now felt like they were inside my head, a chorus of despair and anger. I clapped my hands over my ears, but it was no use. The sound was internal, echoing in the hollow chambers of my mind. I don't remember much after that. Only a blinding panic, a desperate scramble for the front door, and the cold night air rushing over my face as I stumbled out of Blackwood Manor, leaving everything behind. I never looked back. I still hear them sometimes, those whispers, especially when it's quiet. They remind me of the night I stopped being a skeptic and learned that some things, some places, are best left undisturbed. My name is Daniel Reyes, and this story, it still keeps me up at night. 2 years ago, I moved into a cheap studio apartment in Phoenix. Nothing fancy, and low ceilings, old carpet, weird smell, but rent was low and I just needed a place to crash while I got back on my feet. The first week was uneventful, but by the second week, things got strange. It started with the vent. Every night, around 1 or 2 a.m., I'd hear whispering coming from the air vent above my bed. It wasn't loud, just low murmurs. I assumed it was my neighbors, maybe thin walls or something. I even knocked on the wall once just to let them know I could hear them, but the voices didn't stop. One night I couldn't sleep. The whispers were a little louder than usual, and something about them felt off. Not like a conversation, more like chanting. So I grabbed a chair, stood up, and took off the vent cover. Nothing inside, just dark, empty ductwork. I called out, "Hello?" Silence. I put the cover back on and went to bed trying to ignore it. But the next night, I woke up at 2:13 a.m. sharp, same whispers. But this time I heard something else, a voice, clear as day. It said, "Daniel, we see you." I froze. No one should know my name. I didn't sleep that night. First thing the next morning, I asked my neighbor about the vent system. Turns out, there isn't one. The ducts had been sealed off years ago after a fire. That same day I called the landlord. He got real quiet when I mentioned the whispers. Then in a low voice he said, "You live in 3B, right?" "Yeah," he sighed. "There used to be a guy in that unit. 6, 7 years ago. Lived alone. Started saying he heard voices in the walls. Thought someone was watching him. Eventually he broke down, said the voices told him to do things." "What happened to him?" I asked. Another pause. "He disappeared. Never found a body. Only thing left was a chair, under the vent. I moved out that weekend. And to this day, if I ever hear the sound of whispering, I don't look up.